What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Nash here. Welcome back to the channel. It is that time once again. Yes, I have once again a deck profile for you guys off of Nexus. This time it's an Earthbound Immortal deck. Just to show it off for a quick second. So this is actually something that is still technically a work in progress. But I wanted to show this off. So you guys can comment below your thoughts on the deck and what I should do, what cards I should take out, what I should put in, and whatnot. I don't have a side deck at the moment, but I'm sure I'll come up with a side deck at some point. But what's cool about this is that this is a synchro link deck where you have, I believe it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 synchros, and the rest are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so it's 8 synchros, 7 links for a total of 15. This is a 45 card build, so it gives you a bit of a, I guess, sort of an advantage when it comes to resources. But what's cool about this is that the only bricks that are in the deck are actually the Earthbound Immortals themselves, and we're just gonna get straight into it. I'll try to explain this as best I can, but for the Earthbound Immortals, I'm actually running 6 of the 7. And out of all 7, the only one that I'm not running is Riracocha Rosca. So we have Earthbound Immortal Uru. We have the Giant, and what's funny about the Giant is that everybody always mispronounces it. It's pronounced, and if you guys want to laugh in the comments, go ahead and laugh. I don't give a damn. Honestly, but it's pronounced Coca-Paca-Poo. That's the proper term. It's Coca-Paca-Poo. For some odd reason, people always mispronounce it, but that's the proper name. Then we have Earthbound Immortal Chocochalua, Kusalu, Kokaraya, that's how it's pronounced, and also Asila Piscu. So the reason why I'm not running Rosca, and I'll explain Rosca's effect. So his effect says there can only be one Earthbound Immortal monster on the field. If there is no face of field spell on the field, destroy this card. Your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks. This card can attack directly. If this card is normal summon, target 1 to 3 other cards you control, but not more than your opponent has in their hand. Shuffle them into the deck. Then discard the same number of random cards from your opponent's hand, or as many as possible. And if you do, this card gains 1,000 attack for each card discarded by this effect. So it's funny because in the anime, this card was able to reduce your opponent's life points to 1. Back in that was the anime effect, which is funny because they ended up giving it an errata when the card was released. With Uru, basically this card is basically a mind control where you can tribute one of your monsters and then take control of one of your opponent's monsters until the end phase of your turn, which means you can link that off into something like Bortle Sword, Evermax, or even also Nightmare Griffin, which all 3 of which are in the extra deck, which I'll explain why. So this card must have. Now for Coca-Paca-Poo. This one is kind of an interesting one, but this basically has a sort of a Matt Swordbeast effect, sort of. But when he destroys an opponent's monster, basically your opponent gets dealt damage equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. So for instance, if he were to destroy a monster that was in defense mode, in defense position, even if it was in defense, your opponent would still take the damage, which honestly is really good, and it's also interesting because these are all level 10 monsters, which would be perfect for rank 10 plays. But unfortunately, I don't really have. But honestly, there aren't any rank 10s that would be useful in this deck. Now, Chakachalua is different because its effects are similar, but it says once per turn you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to half this card's defense on the field. So because that its defense is 2,400, your opponent would take 1,200 damage, which, I mean, that's not a whole lot of damage, but the damage is really good because if you dealt damage, if you dealt the 1,200 damage, you can go into a link play or something like that and just attack for game, which is really good. The downside with Chakachalua is that you cannot attack during the turn you activate the effect. And then while this card is in defense position, your opponent cannot conduct their battle phase. So this basically not only locks you out of attacking during your turn, but during your opponent's turn, it locks them. Basically, this card locks you and your opponent out of your battle phase. So it would be draw phase, standby phase, main phase 1, main phase 2, and then end phase, basically. Kusalu is interesting because this one is another interesting card, but when he's destroyed by battle, this card is basically a return of the Dragon Lords, where you can tribute one other monster instead. But what's cool about this is that if you do, you can cut your opponent's life points in half. So if they have like say 8,000 life points, it gets cut down to 4,000, which you can easily summon another earthbound immortal, attack them, directly, go for game, GG no rate. Kokoraya is kind of a weird one, but basically what he can do is that if he's destroyed by a card effect, not by battle, but by a card effect, except by its own effect, destroy all cards on the field. So what's cool is that if he were to be destroyed by like say, I'll say Solemn Warning. Let's say Solemn Warning, for example. This card can not only harpies. This card is a dark hole and a heavy storm in one monster. That's how broken Kokoraya really is. And what's cool about Asilapiscu is that Piscu. So this is a kind of a funny one. So its effects says when this face-up card leaves the field except by its own effect, destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, inflict 800 damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. So it's kind of like it's kind of like Malefic Truth Dragon. Let me see. Malefic Truth Dragon. Let's see. I believe. Oh, okay. No, never mind. I think that was the anime effect, but yeah. Basically, your opponent gets dealt 800 points of damage for each monster destroyed, which is absolutely insane. So this card can easily just Regeki your opponent's board like that, which is nuts. Now, so that's basically the Earthbound Immortal lineup. Those are the only ones. Raska, I'm not really running Raska just because just because of the fact that Raska is just not that good, honestly. It's not as broken as these other ones, but out of all of them, the main ones you want to summon the most are obviously Kokapakapu, Chakachalua, Kokoraya, and Asilapiscu. Those are the main ones that you want to summon the most. So you can not only can you break your opponent's board, but you can also just attack directly for game. So those are the main ones you want to go after mostly. For the danger package, yes, crazy enough, I am running the danger package, but I might take it out. But I'm only running one of each. So I have one Bigfoot, one Thunderbird, one Dogman, one Nessie, one Mothman, one Chupacabra, and also one Tsuchinoko and one Jackalope. So Bigfoot, basically, so if you guys don't know, these dangers have unique effects. So starting with Bigfoot, and their first effects are all the same, but their other effects are different. So Bigfoot says if this card is discarded, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. So it could be a Fisher, it could be a MST, it could be anything they want. Thunderbird is a little different because if it's discarded, you can target a set card your opponent controls and destroy it. I believe Dogman. Your opponent's all of your opponent's monsters that they control lose 1,000 attack, which is pretty insane. Nessie basically is a Rhoda. Is basically a Rhoda, so you can add another danger from your deck to your hand, except Nessie. Mothman, I believe, if this card is discarded, you can have both players draw one card, then both players discard one card. So it's basically a Dark World Dealings, basically. Chupacabra basically says you can target a danger monster in your grave, except this card, and special summon it. So it's kind of like a Monster Reborn of sorts. And then Tsuchinoko basically allows you to basically has the effects of Beige Vanguard of Dark World, where if it's sent to the grave by a card effect, you can just special summon it right away. And then Jackalope is basically the same as like I think it's like the same as like Nessie or something like that, where you can special summon a danger from your deck in defense this time. So that's what's cool. So that's pretty cool. You know, those are the only dangers I'm running. Nothing really too crazy, but moving on. Next up, actually I'm running one copy of Earthbound Greater Line Walker, and the only reason why I'm only running one copy is because because this is another one is because this card is another brick. So I'll read off its effect. If you control a single monster or monsters and have a single monster or monsters in your grave, you can special summon this card from your hand. So in this case, because that I'm running both Sun Dragon Inti and Moon Dragon Quila in the extra deck, if like say Quila is in the grave and Inti is on the field, this card can be special summoned from your hand. During your main phase, you can add one Earthbound Immortal monster from your deck or grave to your hand. So it's kind of like a Rhoda of sorts with that effect. If an Earthbound Immortal monster is normal summon while this monster is on the field, you can make your opponent's life points 3,000. So this effect is similar to Raska in the anime, but this is a little different. But this card is actually a brick because oftentimes you may not see you may not see any synchros on your field and your graveyard because obviously your opponent will use call by the grave to banish your synchros, so you won't be able to get its effect off. That's why I'm only running this as a one of. Next up, I actually have two copies of Ascator Dawnwalker and Supe Duskwalker. And then also, and then so okay, so what's cool about these two is that Dawnwalker gives you Fire Ant Ascator. Duskwalker gives you Supe, which those are the main, in which those are the only tuners, and also the two unknown synchron that I'm running in the deck, which I'll explain in just a moment. They're both level 5, and if I was running rank 5 Exceeds monsters, like say Adrius, Keeper of Armageddon, Tyrus, or Adrius, Tyrus, or even also number 14, Greedy Saramaya, I could run those cards in the action in which number 14 basically any effect damage that you would take, your opponent takes instead. So that'd be a pretty cool card to run, but sadly I'm not running them. But these are really these cards are just stupid because their effects are pretty much the same. You get Fire Ant Ascator, Supe, go into your synchro plays, go for game, easy. Next up, I'm running the one copy of Earthbound Linewalker, and the only reason why I'm running this card in particular as a one of is because of the fact that it's basically a Lord of Dragons. It's basically a Lord of D, where your dragons cannot be targeted by card effects. This one is different because it says here, Earthbound immortal monsters cannot be destroyed by their own effects. So you want to try to protect this card as much as possible. So your opponent if you don't have a field spell on in play, your Earthbound immortals can stay on the field for as long as they wish. So that's why I'm only running one copy. Next up, I'm actually running a card that's kind of interesting, but it actually works. Doomsday Horror. So if you guys remember my older Dark World deck profiles, which I do have a updated profile ready to go. I just need to get the cards necessary to complete it. But with Doomsday Horror, because that I'm running 2 copies of Allure of Darkness and I'm banishing my cards a lot, Doomsday Horror can take your dark monsters that are banished and send them back into your graveyard, so you can recycle them and go and do your synchro plays again, your link plays again. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is the fact that Doomsday Horror can actually do that. So that's why I'm running this card. And also too, you wanna set him, flip him face up, and keep him in defense, and then he would gain 300 points for each dark monster that was banished. So if, for instance, if you have, like, say, five dark monsters banished, that's 1,500 attack and defense. But you don't want that. You don't care about how many attack points it has. You only care about the fact that you want Doomsday Horror destroyed, and you want him you want him destroyed, sent to the graveyard, so you can get back your dark monsters into your graveyard, go into your Earthbound Immortal plays, and again, as I mentioned with the Immortals themselves, just attack for game. And then of course again, as I mentioned, Fire Ant Ascator, Supe, and Unknown Synchron. There are a bunch of synchros here, so you gotta run these cards to get out your synchro plays. Now moving on to the spells. So first up, I have 2 copies of Allure of Darkness again. Again, going back with Doomsday Horror, you're banishing your card. You're drawing 2 cards. You're banishing a dark. You gotta have Doomsday Horror, and plus some people, for some Earthbound Immortal decks, depending on their style, on their build, I've seen decks run 3. This one is better off at 2 because this is more of a control beatdown style. So you want to try to minimize how many cards you draw and how many cards you banish. So that's why I'm only running 2. Next up, I have 2 copies of Earthbound Immortal Earthbound Immortal Revival. This card basically says discard one card, then target one Earthbound Immortal monster and a field spell in your grave. Add those targets to your hand. It's basically a 1-for-2, sort of, but yeah, so this card is pretty cool. Basically, you get to add one of your Earthbound Immortals back to your hand. Go for game easy. Double copies of Pot of Avarice. Self-explanatory. I'm not saying anything about that card. One copy of Terraforming, because I'm running what 3. I'm running because that I have Earthbound Geoglyph. You gotta run Terraforming. Next up, the one copy of Monster Reborn. It's Monster Reborn. You gotta run it in everything. Nothing dare I say more. Then Earthbound Whirlwind. This is an interesting card because this is basically a Harpy's Feather Duster, but the cost is that you have to have an Earthbound Immortal. So you gotta have that. But obviously you're gonna be seeing your Earthbound Immortals on your board a lot. So you have to so you gotta have at least one copy. Next up, I'm actually running a card that's kind of an interesting one, but it actually works comboing off with Chaka Cholua. And that is Synchronized Realm. It's a continuous spell that says each time you synchro summon a synchro monster, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. And the funny thing is, this is not a once per turn. This is not a once per turn. You can use that effect over and over and over again if you synchro summon a lot. So because that you will be synchro summoning a lot of your synchros, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage to your opponent. And then last but not least, the field spell, Earthbound Geoglyph. Nothing too crazy with this card. Basically it just protects your Earthbound Immortals, and it also protects your it also allows you to add a Earthbound Immortal spell or trap to your hand from your deck if you have a single monster. If you had special summoned a single monster. So with those two together, that's pretty insane. That's pretty insanity. And then for the traps, there's only 5 traps in the deck. 2 infinite permanents. 1 Roar of the Earthbound Immortal, or what was originally known as Roar of the Earthbound, but it was errated. But the name was errated to Roar of the Earthbound Immortal in Legendary Duelist Immortal Destiny. But what's cool about this card is that it says once per turn, if an opponent's monster declares an attack, target the attacking monster, destroy that target. If you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the destroyed monster's attack. You must control an Earthbound Immortal with attack higher than the attack of the attacking monster to activate and resolve the effect. Because you're running 3 monsters, two monsters with 3,000. That's insane. That's insane. That's why I'm only running 1. Is because that might not be possible, because there are so many different there are so many meta cards, like Borrelsword, Borload, and whatnot, that have the same points as Uru and Kokapakapu. So that's why I'm only running 1. But if your opponent has attack points less, then it's a sure thing. Hang on, guys. Oh, never mind. Sorry, guys. My brother just texted me while I'm filming. Anyway, and then last but not least, probably the I guess the solemn judgment of the whole deck, Earthbound Wave. So this card says when your opponent activates a spell or trap while you control an Earthbound Immortal, negate the activation and destroy it. Again, it's basically a solemn judgment for the deck. Now moving on to the extra deck. First up, I actually have a card that's actually interesting for this deck, but it works. Vermilion Dragon Mech. This was seen in Dual Devastator, and it's a tuner, non-tuner, really generic. Once per turn, you can banish 1 tuner from your hand, graveyard or face of the field, then target a card on the field and destroy it. If this synchro summon card is destroyed by card effects sent to the grave, you can target one of your banished tuners, add it to your hand. This card is stupid. Because when you banish your tuners, You could target one of your opponent's cards and just destroy it right off the bat. That's how broken this card is. And then also too, obviously I mentioned the Sun Dragon, Inti, Borderlord Savage Dragon, Cyphering Lord Omega. Obviously it's at 1, so nothing too crazy there. FA Dawn Dragster, kind of an interesting card, but it actually works. Moon Dragon Quila, Stardust Charged Warrior, and also Formula Synchron, because of the fact that I have several level 8 synchros. I can tune one of them and Formula Synchron into Vermilion Dragon Mech. For the links, we got Boral Sword. I'm not saying anything else. It's Boral Sword, Avramax, Saryuja, and then of course the Nightmare package. We have the 1 Griffin, Phoenix, and Cerberus. Cerberus is actually kind of cool because when it's link summoned, you can discard a card, target a special summon monster in your opponent's main monster zone, and destroy it, which is really cool. Nightmare Phoenix focuses on spells and traps that your opponent controls, and then Nightmare Griffin actually focuses on the spells and traps in your graveyard, so you can set them. And then last but not least, Crystron Halka Fibrax to get out Formula Synchron and go into your synchro plays. Guys, that is going to do it for this video. Let me know in the comments below two things. Number 1, your thoughts on the deck, what cards I should take out, what I should put in. And the second thing is what other deck do you want to see me do a profile on? I'm very curious. Let me know in the comments below. And that is going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. And if you guys are new to the channel and you guys love seeing these deck profiles, definitely hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you guys don't miss out on any new content that comes your way. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. All the links will be down in the description. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.